Hey guys, welcome back to Ultimate S&S. So, kind of checking the news out today. Some pretty funny stuff, I think. So, apparently, we had a lot of illegals coming into Florida, and they were on some buses. And as they arrived in Florida, Desantis actually had it set up where they were loaded onto a plane. They were flown out to Martha's Vineyard and dropped off out there. Now, here's what I think is hilarious about it. One, it's in the area where all these elitists are like, oh no, we need to just have open borders, but they don't want them in their area. But the response of that, so Texas has been sending them to New York, and the New Yorkers are saying, one, if you want closed borders, then they're calling you racist. If you don't want them in your state, they're calling you racist. But it's also racist to be sending them to New York because they don't want them in New York. They want them down here in the southern states draining off of our systems and stuff. That's the thing I think is interesting is you get these people from other states and they want to tell your state how they need to be spending your funds. And we just don't have the manpower in our schools and stuff down here in Florida because they're overloading the school system. These are children that cannot speak English. There's not enough Spanish interpreters down here. And they're just kind of like, oh, well, it ain't no big deal. Just send them and fill our schools up. We're already having a shortage of teachers and stuff in our area as well. But yeah, so I think it's pretty interesting that we send them up there. But now all of a sudden, they don't want them up there, but they don't want to come out and say that. They just like to call us racist because we send them up there. Hey, if you want to have open borders, they can come stay with you. So DeSantis also said not only is he going to send them to Martha's Vineyard, which is hilarious because that's where all the elites hang out anyway, but he's also talking about sending them to Joe Biden's home state in Delaware. So, that's going to work out pretty good. But I guess it's bad. Like I said in another video, when you see something happen towards somebody else, and you don't really like that criteria stuff, you kind of laugh about it. Now, these are actual people. These are actual lives. There is a legal way to come into this country. They choose not to do it, then they're going to get shuffled around. And that's just a risk they're going to have to take. Just like the risk when they come across illegally, there's dangers that come in with that. Not just from when I say a coyote, I'm not talking about the animal running around through the woods. I'm talking about these snakehead coyotes and stuff that take money and then they send them up here and then they got another one waiting and then they're going to work and pay them money and all this other mess. And they always hit them up for more money. If they can't pay, then they end up killing them. That's where these mass graves and stuff are coming from on both sides of the borders, is because they'll shoot a price, but then they double it before they can actually come into the country. So it's basically human trafficking. It's not sex trafficking, but it is human trafficking. So and then you get a lot of the sex trafficking that's happening. But I think it's really important right now that, one, you realize that we're trying to get food. We've talked about that a lot on this channel. We've talked a lot about, the processes that we have out here. But one of the things you need to realize is it's not a chore when you have animals such as chickens, for example. When you come out and you get your eggs, it's kind of nice because you have fresh eggs that you can cook. You can incubate, whatever you want to do with it. And then your chickens like to come out. They're very friendly. They come out and they want to see what's going on. They hang out by your feet. If you have a rooster, keep an eye on him because you need to make sure his approach is of a friendly approach and not he's fixing to nail you with some freaking talons or something, But when they come out, they're kind of moving around, they're doing their thing. They're fun to watch, and it's relaxing to watch them. And not only that, but it's one of those situations where it actually has kind of a calming effect because, one, you're processing your own foods, whether it's from the egg area or even the meat area. So that's something to keep in mind. There's a day coming, I believe, that food prices are going to be so high, and I'm already seeing this. Understand, grocery bill here has already tripled, and that's since the beginning of the year. That's with the inflation that's going on. So when you see these people come out and go, wow, inflation really jumped up quicker than we thought. Well, it didn't come up quicker than we were thinking. It didn't come up quicker than what we've been reporting. And when I say we, I don't mean just me. I'm talking about all preppers out there. Every prepper channel has been telling you, get prepared, not going to be able to afford your food. And that's what we're seeing now. So what is it that we're looking at here? Well, like I was sitting down talking with my dad the other day, I said, it gets to the point where you got to be selective about what you're buying in the store. You have to look for the deals and stuff, which I think most of us do anyway. But there will eventually come a reality where it may actually be cheaper, and understand even the price of stuff that you're feeding your animals and your flocks and stuff is going up. But it could actually end up being cheaper where you're just buying feed to feed your birds. That way you have a constant supply of egg and a constant supply of meat. Now, when you look at it, so I don't want to eat chicken all the time or eggs all the time. Well, maybe it doesn't sound great, but have you ever been hungry? I mean, I'm talking like really hungry to the point where you almost feel sick. And then after that, you get to a point of starvation, which takes a few days to get there. If you've ever been that hungry, chicken eggs sound pretty good, and you'll probably never turn your nose up to a meal. But you know, that's something you need to look at is it going to be cheaper to buy the stuff that they're selling for human consumption, or is it going to be cheaper in the long run, which I believe it will be, to be able to raise your own animals? It's going the cost effectiveness right now, if you're just raising what you eat, is actually a little bit more cost effective than buying this stuff at the stores. We've already seen these cans where they sell you canned beans, vegetables, you know, fruit, whatever the scenario is. Those prices have continued to climb up, and the cans are actually getting shorter and narrower, and they're cutting back on how much they're actually giving you. So you need to kind of take all that into play as well. The chicken aspect, just from the feed aspect on things, you want to make sure you have a good protein feed or an egg layers feed for your hens. I try to buy what they call game bird feed. One, it's cheaper than buying your typical chick feed. It has the same proteins counts as a chick feed does, so you can use that to feed your chickens as their little chicks. Then you have your layers feed, which is a little bit lower protein source, but it has calcium added into it. Now, depending on how you want to do things, that is typically a little bit cheaper, so you can boost your protein with mealworms and things like that as well. Or you can look at from an aspect, say, well, I want to just buy one type of a food source, and then you can actually supplement calcium, which would be through crushed eggshells, giving that back to your chickens. You want to make sure that you wash them and that you crush them up. It should not resemble an egg. Otherwise, what you're going to end up with is chickens that eat their own eggs, and you don't want that. You do not want them eating their own eggs, because then you're just throwing money out. Now, you do have the meat variety of chickens, but typically when you start getting into these Ranger breeds, which are just a bird, they don't really roost, they just kind of run around on the ground and eat. You're not going to be able to get that bird, or even a lot of your Cornish cross, you're not going to get them to a laying stage or even a breeding stage, because typically they have heart attacks or you know, before they get to a breeding stage. So something to think about. I use dual purpose birds here, and I've tried the different varieties. So we have our Brahma hen. She does a good job foraging for herself. She lays a nice size egg. She's not a great egg layer though. About every other day, sometimes every 3 days, she lays us a nice size egg. And a lot of times it's a double yolker. So there's something going on with her on that. But we do get that nice egg on occasion. But our black Ashthorpes, they lay profusely. I mean, they are very proficient. They just continue to lay every day. And our brown leghorn, they are a very flighty bird. But I like having a brown leghorn around because, one, it gives you, you know, I say a medium small size egg. It's not as large as some of your other eggs, but that bird can get away from predators like none other. You talk about a flighty bird that will fly right over your head if you spook her. They're very spooky. They're not a bird that's going to come up and want to be pet and things like that. They kind of run and just do their own thing. And what I've noticed is that she typically kind of hangs out in the taller weeds and ambushes these types of, you know, we have a lot of lizards out here, frogs and stuff, but we have these little geckos and all kinds of weird stuff down here. And she actually blends in pretty good with the grass, so I don't have to worry too much about the aerial predators. And she will ambush these lizards great. Now, the other chickens, on the other hand, they're kind of dumb. The black Ashthorpes, I've noticed, they just chase and chase and chase and chase. Now, one of the reasons why I went with some black chickens is because supposedly, according to articles, a aerial predator is less apt to attack a black chicken. I don't believe it's true, but they say because they think it's a crow and they don't want to be chased by crows or a raven or something like that. So, but hungry is hungry, and I don't think a hawk or an eagle or something is going to be too afraid to grab whatever it is on the ground they want. But you leave your grasses kind of high, but you want to make sure to have areas that when those aerial predators come in, because while they're out foraging, that rooster is watching the sky and he's watching the area. And you want to make sure that they have an area where they can run to. And under the solar panels, back into their coop, which is a covered run, there's great areas for them to be able to get away from any dangers that's going to approach them. So that's something that's really great to think about when you're doing your chickens and stuff is, you know, yes, get food now, but the problem is we're seeing the food prices going up so high. And for those of you with an acre of yard, I don't know how many people you have in your family, but you can carry enough chickens on an acre of yard that can kind of free graze around as long as you have good natural stuff. Now, if you've killed your yard down to just growing normal grass, then no. If you have a lot of those wild type varieties that we have out here, just grasses, what they call weeds and stuff, is actually food sources for your birds. And that's cutting back on our feed bill considerably. And you got to think about, when there's an SHTF scenario, are you going to be able to go to the feed store to get their food? No. If you have a scenario where there's SHTF, you're going to be running to the grocery stores and stuff. But, depends. I don't imagine we're going to as much, because there's going to be a lot of different stipulations and stuff that's going to be on there. And they want to know exactly where you're at. They're going to want to come check your stuff out. And you kind of want to lay low. So I wouldn't even go with that. When it comes to chickens, as long as you have that proper planting of what it is they need to eat and survive, if it gets where the feed store is no longer open and you can't go to a grocery store, they're going to feed themselves. That's one of the great things about down here in Florida is, one, yes, you have predators, but two, you have enough natural food sources that they're going to be able to eat pretty much year round. And what I'm going to be doing here is I'm free grazing my chickens more. I'm going to work on opening up, more run area, which is going to be more of top netting for keeping the eagles and your hawks and stuff like that from being able to scoop down and get to them. It's going to be some top netting. But as far as the open sides and stuff, I think we've got most of the stuff kind of trimmed out back here. But as they free range more, it's going to leave their smell around in those grasses. So expect to start seeing more snakes and even coyotes and stuff like that. So you always have to be aware of what's happening. But it's going to feed them and cut back on the bill. So the food that we're buying now, we supplement them a little bit every day. But the main thing is, it's going to be there for the winter months when we have those winter and the frost is hitting, it's killing everything down. It's going to be a great source where we're able to actually stockpile food for them. So that's something you should think about as well. But I hope everyone has a wonderful day. We're going to hop off here